Two men step onto a quiet porch and ring the bell. They tell the homeowner there's been an accident with the woodchipper. Police will soon be called. At first, everyone thinks it's a tragic workplace death. Hours later, detectives will look at the same yard and decide the story doesn't fit the scene. The grandma who planned a woodchipper murder. The Sharon Graham story. You're watching Twistedcase, careful, evidence-led true crime. If that's your thing, follow for more calm, precise storytelling. Bruce Saunders is a hard-working butcher on the Sunshine Coast. He shows up early, stays late, and offers help before being asked. He's a father and a dependable friend. People describe him as generous and loyal. After losing his first wife and separating from his second, he spends a few years alone. He wants love again, and he wants a simple, stable future. Bruce meets Sharon Graham online. She laughs easily and makes him feel needed. The relationship is on and off. It isn't a smooth path, but Bruce tries to keep it going. He buys her an engagement ring. He helps with bills and cars. He updates insurance paperwork. Ordinary acts that show trust and commitment. Sharon's life includes other men. One is Peter Koenig, a longtime friend and sometime partner who is extremely loyal to her. Another that arrives later is Gregory Roser, also connected to her romantically. Bruce knows about some of this, but not all, and he tries to hold his place in Sharon's life. Those relationships, and a few key documents, will matter later. In late 2017, Sharon asks Bruce for help clearing trees on a rural property at Goomboorian, north of the Sunshine Coast. The property belongs to a friend of hers. The plan is straightforward: 3 weekends of yard work, with a rented industrial wood chipper to handle the green waste. Bruce, who often pays when others are short, covers the rental. They work over 2 weekends without major incidents. On the third weekend, Sunday evening arrives humid and heavy. With light fading, 3 men are present: Bruce Saunders, Gregory Roser, and Peter Koenig. A woman is inside the house, asleep. A little before 8 p.m., the wood chipper becomes central to the story. The first version that reaches police is simple. Bruce slipped and fell into the machine. A horrible, freak accident. But accident is only the beginning. When first responders arrive, Roser and Koenig appear shaken. They repeat the same idea. Bruce was careless around the machine. It all happened quickly. That is the official story for the next few hours. Detectives start routine checks: photos, measurements, and basic scene control. They notice details that don't sit right with an accidental pull-through. Blood on the feeder tray suggests the body was positioned there for a time. Drag marks in the dirt point toward the machine. These are early clues. They don't prove murder on their own, but they push investigators to look deeper. Phone records are collected, statements are taken, the timeline is drawn. The pattern forming on that timeline does not match the men's account. And then there is motive. In the months before his death, Bruce had increased his life insurance and named Sharon Graham as the sole beneficiary. The amount is significant. Combined with other entitlements, Bruce is financially valuable, on paper. That is when accident begins to look like a plan. Phones are seized. The yard is taped off. The machine is towed. Statements are compared. Inconsistencies multiply. This is the point of no return. Once the forensic picture starts to harden, the case can't slide back to tragic mistake. It has to be pursued as a suspicious death. Investigators study the connections between the 3 men and Sharon. They find that Roser used an alias when Bruce was around, a sign that appearances were being managed. Koenig is loyal to Sharon to a fault. Roser is in a sexual relationship with her. Bruce is trying to keep a future with her alive. 3 men, 1 center of gravity, Sharon. Detectives now have a diagram that suggests pressure points, who might act, who might assist, and who stands to benefit. Paperwork is quiet evidence. It sits in files until someone looks at it closely. Investigators discover Bruce increased his life insurance and listed Sharon as the sole beneficiary. There are superannuation benefits as well. The numbers change the risk calculation. On paper, Bruce is worth more dead than alive. That phrase will echo in court. Together with the relationships, the paperwork suggests motive and opportunity, but investigators still need proof of planning and action. Search warrants turn up handwritten notes. They aren't poetry or random thoughts. They look like drafts of crimes, floor plans, arrival times, when lights are off, and when doors are likely unlocked. There are references to earlier ideas, ambushing Bruce at home, a possible shooting in a car park, even timing that matched travel booked by Sharon. These earlier plots never happened, but they show intent and rehearsal. If someone planned only for an accident at a work site, you wouldn't need a hallway diagram with alarm times. The notes make investigators more confident that the Woodchipper story is cover, not cause. Police obtain surveillance warrants. They place listening devices. Some of the recorded conversations take place in a car parked inside Sharon's garage. The tone is low and cautious. People talk about getting stories straight and what will be said if asked. They talk about money and insurance. They do not talk like people traumatized by a freak accident. They talk like people managing risk. The audio does not catch a confession to the killing, but it captures behavior and language that match planning and coordination. That helps the Crown later. At trial, Peter Koenig tells the court he saw Roser strike Bruce with a steel bar they had been using to push branches into the woodchipper. Koenig says Bruce fell, and then Roser struck again. Koenig admits helping drag Bruce to the machine. He says he later helped stage the body's disposal to make it look like an accident. His testimony is not just about what happened, but it is also about why. He was loyal to Sharon, and he feared Roser. Forensic signs at the scene, blood on the feeder tray, drag marks, and the timeline fit Koenig's account better than they fit the first accident story. This is a pivotal turn. Investigators now have motive, planning behavior, and a narrative of the act from a participant. Police arrest Roser, Koenig, and Graham in 2018. The cases do not move fast. There are delays and legal steps that take years. In 2022, facing trial himself, Peter Koenig pleads guilty to being an accessory after the fact and agrees to testify against Roser and then later against Graham.
Koenig's decision divides opinion. Some see a man trying to make a late correction. Others see a participant avoiding a heavier penalty. In the justice system, cooperation often trades information for leniency. That trade will become a debate point among viewers, too. 2 major trials follow, one for Roser, one for Graham. The Crown's case is simple and focused. Roser struck Bruce and helped dispose of his body in the woodchipper to create a cover story. The motive? Money for Sharon, emotional leverage, and possible personal gain. The supporting pillars? The forensic scene, Koenig's testimony, the earlier planning notes, the audio recordings, and the financial documents. The defense argues fear and chaos. They suggest Koenig had a larger role and that Roser was not the planner. They try to increase doubt about Koenig's credibility, reminding jurors he made a deal. Jurors hear about the pooled blood on the feeder tray and why it contradicts a sudden fall. They hear about phone calls placed after the machine stopped. They see the notes that map homes and routines. They listen to the garage recordings where people practice answers. After deliberation, the jury finds Gregory Roser guilty of murder. He receives a life sentence. Parole eligibility will not come for at least 20 years. The accident narrative, as a full explanation, is now legally dead. The Crown presents Sharon Graham as the architect. She did not swing the bar. She did not feed the machine. But the Crown says she planned the killing, encouraged Roser to do it, and expected to benefit from life insurance and other entitlements. She is, in their framing, the central force. Evidence includes the insurance paperwork naming her as sole beneficiary, the covert recordings, the earlier planning notes that aligned with travel she booked, the changeable stories told after Bruce's death, and Koenig's testimony describing Graham's role and influence. The prosecution calls her manipulation deliberate and sustained. The defense challenges the reliability of Koenig, questions inferences drawn from the paperwork, and argues that grief and confusion can look like inconsistency. They suggest that the Crown is overreading ordinary actions. After 3 weeks, the jury finds Sharon Graham guilty of murder. The judge's language at sentencing is blunt. He describes what the court sees as deep-rooted callousness. Graham receives life imprisonment. At the end of this second trial, 2 outcomes are fixed. Roser and Graham are serving life sentences. Koenig, who helped the prosecution, receives a suspended sentence for being an accessory after the fact. After the convictions, attention turns to money and property. There are estate issues to settle. In cases like this, the forfeiture rule prevents a person from profiting from a crime. Proceedings can take time as public trustees and the courts sort out what remains and who has a lawful claim. It is not dramatic, but it matters to families. Appeals are filed. Public statements are made. Some motions are routine, some challenge parts of the record. Appeals do not erase verdicts automatically. They test specific rulings or legal standards. While those play out, families move through their own private grief. Ordinary days return. They never feel ordinary again. This case is not only about a machine. It's about paperwork and influence. It's about how loneliness and trust can be turned into leverage. Bruce updated documents to show love and commitment. Those documents became motive on a balance sheet. That is a hard sentence to say out loud, but it's the clearest way to understand this crime. It's also about thresholds. The doorbell on the night of the death, the garage where whispers were recorded, and the courtroom doors that close softly before a verdict is read. Each threshold separates versions of the story. On one side, accident. On the other, intent. Finally, the case shows how investigations build, not from one dramatic clue, but from layers. Forensics, documents, notes, audio, phone logs, and testimony that together form a consistent picture. Remove any single layer, and the structure still stands. That is why the juries were persuaded. Mid-2017, Sharon Graham's relationships overlap. Bruce, on and off partner, Peter Koenig, longtime follower, friend, Gregory Roser, new romantic interest. 2017, months before November, Bruce increases life insurance, and Sharon is named sole beneficiary. 2017, prior to November, planning notes and discussions occur about other possible ways to kill Bruce. Some travel is booked that aligns with a proposed time frame. November 12, 2017, evening. Bruce, Roser, and Koenig work at a rural property with an industrial woodchipper. Bruce is killed. The scene is staged as an accident. Late 2017 or early 2018. Investigation focuses on inconsistencies. Forensics do not match a sudden accident. 2018. Arrests of Roser, Koenig, and Graham. 2022. Koenig pleads guilty to being an accessory after the fact and agrees to testify. Roser goes to trial and is found guilty of murder, sentenced to life imprisonment. 2023. Graham is tried and found guilty of murder, sentenced to life imprisonment. Post-trial. Estate matters handled through the courts. Appeals lodged. This timeline condenses a long, complex case into clear steps. Each step builds on the last. Each document, call, and recording adds weight to the conclusion. A door opens. Two men say there's been a terrible accident. They use the word fell. The homeowner steps into the night air and calls for help. People move quickly. No one yet knows how important that porch light will be to the story. It is the first threshold we cross. Police take statements. The men say Bruce was careless with the machine. They claim it happened fast. Officers secure the scene and notify detectives. The machine is shut off. The night becomes very quiet.
The scene tells a different story. There is blood on the feeder tray where the body would have rested, not where a sudden pull-through would start. There are drag marks, not scuff marks from a struggle at the opening. The pattern on the ground is a choreography of moving a body, not an accidental fall. Detectives write notes. The accident explanation is now a claim to be tested, not a fact to be accepted. Investigators check connections. They learn Sharon is at the center. Roser is her lover. Koenig is deeply loyal to her. Bruce is the ex-partner still trying to help. The risk here is not a rivalry, but influence. Who would do something for Sharon, and why? Bruce's insurance policy becomes a key exhibit. Its value is large. The beneficiary is Sharon. There are also other monies tied to Bruce's death. This is not proof of guilt, but it is a clear motive. The question shifts from, was this an accident, to who benefits if it is not? Handwritten notes appear during a search. They map houses, list times when people sleep, and outline entry paths. They mention dates that match Sharon's travel. The notes do not concern landscaping. They concern killing without witnesses. The accident theory now sits under a heavy pile. Listening devices capture conversations in a parked car inside Sharon's garage. The speakers stress about what to say, how to say it, and how to keep stories aligned. They talk about insurance and money. The tone is careful. It is not grief. It is preparation. Koenig testifies that Roser struck Bruce with a steel bar, then moved the body toward the woodchipper to stage an accident. Bruce is already dead or dying when the machine is used. The forensic scene supports this version more than it supports the original claim. Koenig admits he helped with the staging. He says fear and loyalty drove him. He accepts legal responsibility for helping after the fact. Bruce is mourned. People cry. According to evidence presented later, Sharon speaks with others about entitlements soon after. Whether that was practical or cold is a matter of opinion, but in context, it becomes another detail that jurors weigh. The legal process takes years. Koenig makes his deal to testify. Roser is tried and convicted in 2022. Graham is tried and convicted in 2023. The sentences for both are life imprisonment. Jurors are asked to set feelings aside and evaluate evidence. Here's what likely mattered most. Forensic mismatch. The physical scene did not align with a sudden accident. Planning notes. The drafts of other killing methods showed intent existed well before the woodchipper death. Financial motive. Insurance and other benefits tied to Bruce's death directly benefited Sharon. Recorded behavior. The garage conversations showed coordination and concern about consistent stories, not raw grief. Testimony. Koenig's account, even with his deal, fit the physical evidence better than the defense narratives. Timeline and calls. Communications around the critical times supported planning and after-the-fact management. It wasn't one piece, it was the fit of all the pieces. Gregory Roser is convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment, with parole eligibility only after a long minimum term. Sharon Graham is convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Peter Koenig pleads guilty to being an accessory after the fact and receives a suspended sentence in exchange for cooperation. Not everyone agrees with the balance here. Some argue Koenig's participation was too serious for leniency. Others argue that without his testimony, the full plan would not have been proven. The justice system often values cooperation because it can reveal the truth. Viewers will have strong feelings either way. Bruce Saunders was more than a case file. He was a father, a brother, a colleague, and a friend. He wanted to help. He wanted to love and be loved. Paperwork he signed to show commitment later became the reason others saw value in his death. That's a brutal fact. It should not be the final word about him. When people talk about this case, they should say his name first and the machine second. The story doesn't mean that life insurance is dangerous or that helping partners is reckless. It means you should understand the power of documents. Know who benefits and why. Share decisions with trusted friends or family. Keep records of changes. If something in a relationship feels off, aliases, shifting stories, said in secrecy, slow down and ask questions. Most relationships are not crimes. A few are. Pay attention to the difference. After months of investigation and 2 major trials that pulled together forensics from a rural yard, recordings taken from a parked car, notes that mapped out other ways to kill, and policy papers that turned affection into financial incentive, 2 juries concluded that Bruce Saunders did not die by accident, but by a planned act disguised as one. Guilty. Roser and Graham are serving life sentences. Koenig walks free under a suspended term after cooperating. The estate winds down under the law. Appeals move at their own pace. The weather on that original night, a humid Queensland evening with insects in the trees, belongs to the past now. The consequences do not. We end where we started, at a threshold. On one side is trust. On the other is exploitation. Paperwork sits in the middle. It's only dangerous when someone decides to use it that way. Here's the dilemma I'd like you to weigh, respectfully, with reasons. Should the justice system trade lighter sentences for insider testimony in murders like this, valuing truth and convictions over equal punishment? Or should everyone who crosses the line into participation face the same severe consequences, even if that means fewer convictions? Tell us where you land and why. This was Twisted Case. If careful documentary-style storytelling helps you make sense of complex cases, follow for the next episode.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe for more gripping true crime breakdowns, mysteries, and criminal psychology stories, only on Twisted Case.